My name is Chris McIlvain, M-C-I-L-V-A-I-N. I'm an assistant chief with the Austin Police Department. I'm here this morning with Assistant City Manager Ray Ariano and several members of our command and executive team to discuss the officer-involved shooting that happened this morning at approximately 2:08 a.m. in the 10400 block of Anderson Mill Road. This began at about 1:08 this morning when officers responded to a panic robbery alarm at 10401 Anderson Mill Road. A few minutes later, a second call came in that advised that two males were physically fighting in the parking lot of this establishment. The suspect was described as a 40 to 45-year-old white male who was armed with a gun. Upon arrival, the suspect had departed the scene. Officers made contact with witnesses inside the establishment and took possession of the gun. Apparently, the gun was taken away from the suspect during that initial disturbance. At 1:36 a.m., about 26 minutes later, a second call came in from the same establishment that the suspect had returned to the scene and was now armed with additional weapons. They were described as a shotgun and an AR-15 assault rifle. One of the officers from the original call was still in the area and made his way back to the establishment. He observed the suspect in the area of the parking lot of that establishment with both weapons. And as he was waiting for backup officers to arrive, he observed the suspect aim the assault rifle in the air and fire approximately 5 to 6 times. At that point, the additional officers began arriving and they began giving the suspect orders to drop the weapon. The suspect refused and began walking southbound towards a church that is located directly behind the original establishment. Officers began tracking the suspect very deliberately and cautiously, and additional officers began arriving. The suspect made his way onto the property of the church located behind that original establishment and fired an additional 5 to 6 shots in the air with the assault rifle. As additional officers arrived on scene, they began trying to set up a react team to contain this individual. It was a very open environment. It was a courtyard of a church. The suspect had actually somewhat barricaded himself behind a retaining wall, and our officers were able to keep eyes on the subject and begin a dialogue. This went on for about 13 minutes, where our officers continually gave the subject orders to drop the weapons and to come out and talk to them. The suspect continually refused to do so. He did maintain a dialogue, but he refused to comply with their orders to drop the weapons. At about 2:03 a.m., the subject leaves the barricaded area that he originally posted himself in and began walking through the courtyard. We had multiple officers in various locations trying to contain the subject while we waited for SWAT and hostage negotiators who had been called to the scene previously. They had not yet arrived when the subject decided to leave his area of containment and began walking through the courtyard. It was at that time that officers encountered the subject and our officers fired and the subject went down. Immediately following that, our officers approached and made the area safe and began immediately providing life-saving measures. But ultimately, the subject was pronounced deceased. I don't have the exact time on that at this point. At this point, it appears only one of our officers fired. We will know more, obviously, as the investigation continues, but at this point, it seems that shots were only fired by one officer. And with that, I'll take some questions.
You said establishment. Was this a business that was open?
Yes, sir, it was.
So it was an argument between the proprietor and the suspect?
I don't know that it was with the proprietor. It just said that two males were fighting, that will be part of our ongoing investigation.
And he returned to this same establishment with additional weapons?
That is correct. He was, in the original event, he was armed with a handgun, it appears, but it was taken away. Our officers took control of that handgun when they arrived, And when he came back the second time, about 25 minutes later, he was armed with the long guns.
And there's no danger to the public?
Not at this time, not at this time. Obviously, our concern was the fact that this is a residential area and he was mobile. So this was a very fluid and dynamic situation that our officers encountered. And that was their concern. But at this time, no, there is no further danger.
Are you releasing the officer's name?
Not at this time, no.
And what's the protocol for?
He will be placed on administrative duty while we have the concurrent criminal and administrative investigations going on.
And this was at this pub right down on the other side of this? Is
Yes.
that where it started?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Do we
Good.
know if alcohol was involved?
Too early to tell at this point.
Great. Thank y'all.
Thank you.